I think among the things that are concerning for me is that the people that I work with, and I'm in a reform congregation, we're a very large community with a lot of diversity within that community. I think that what is particularly concerning to me is that our people are so caught off guard and surprised that all of the sudden in 2023, all of the sudden it's as if there was anti-Semitism before October 7th, we either had our heads in the sand or we were just kind of in a position of not really acknowledging the extent to which anti-Semitism is still a part of the human existence. I won't say the Jewish existence, because I think anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism is more than a Jewish concern and more than a Jewish problem. It is shocking to me that it is so shocking when we think of the role that the Jewish community had in Black Lives Matter. Why is it so shocking that the people that we thought we could rely upon, who were our partners in this endeavor, are not present? I personally never had that expectation. I never really thought that by showing up for other groups and other communities, that meant that it was a two-way street. And so I don't know if that's my cynicism or just guarding myself and kind of building a tochacha understanding of where we're living and in what time. We're not really able to fully assimilate. We're not really fully able to consider that everything is just okay. I think that if anything we've learned from history is that, b'chol dor v'dor, and that we always have this element of being the other. It's a part of our tragedy, and it's a part of our success, I think, through the generations, is that there's always this piece of our being the other that is a part of our reality. When we think that we can squash that out and just kind of become like our neighbors, is when I feel that we lose a little bit of a sense of self as a people. So, I find it concerning that in general, people were really caught off guard. What were we thinking? What were they thinking? But to really be so surprised when it's a part of our real human condition, Jewish condition. How has October 7th impacted the way in which I, as the director of Jewish Life and Learning, now approach what we do in the classrooms and what we're seeing our alumni, our graduates, our alumni families are dealing with, is that, and we're in a little bit of a challenging situation because our oldest students are in 6th grade, right? And so by the time they're in 6th grade, they're just beginning to develop a sense of self and peoplehood, and they can conceptually and cognitively understand time and history, and you can kind of start getting into some of the details. But what we have not done a good job with, it is being really pushed back on now, is kind of the transparency and the complexity of the situation in Israel, that there is another nation that feels that they are displaced, that there is another narrative that plays into the mindset and the Zionist principles that we really adhere to, and realizing that we have to kind of find a way, even in 5th and 6th grade, to promote that Jewish pride and that feeling of, I can be Jewish, I am safe, it is good to be Jewish. Judaism means to be a part of a forward thinking, and also, awareness of self and history, being a part of that nation, spreading the light. What is the role of mitzvot? To do good, to bring goodness. We are a good people. People are good. Adding another layer to that, and letting children know at a at a young age, that I feel is too young for them. I think it's very complicated to promote Jewish pride and go deeper than they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat, when we get to our Jewish holidays, that there is a part of that unfortunately now needs to be layered in, because as we find our graduates going into middle school and high school and beyond, and their families who go with them. Yes, they love Shabbat, they love the holidays, they have a sense of mitzvot, they have a sense of achrayut, they have a sense of purpose, they have a sense of meaning, but they are completely sideswiped and unprepared to deal with the reality. And now it's a reality. I think that now it's not just as Baba Maisa, right? It's not just from the Second World War. It's not just in certain countries. It's in our neighborhoods. It's in our places. It's of work that we have families who are questioning whether they should tuck their Magen David into their shirt, if they should take off their mezuzot. I can't think of a time when our people have even considered these as options or kind of strategies for survival, and what it means to compromise our Jewish identity, and to be at a place where we're educating families and we need to tell them, look, yes, we are proud and we stand tall and proud, and we need to, because there is the other part of this reality of our existence, that there are people who don't like us just because we are Jewish, and to teach them the horrible lesson that, Hitler didn't discriminate whether you did mitzvot or whether you went to day school, or whether, that there is, you are Jewish by your birth, you are Jewish by your affiliation to a community, and that is complicated, that Israel is complicated, that our living in America and around the world is complicated, is something that, again, we've needed to reframe it, because it is still so shocking, that our people are just realizing that anti-Semitism is not just this ancient construct that we no longer need to deal with. It is here and it is now, and supporting the parents who are in a different place of shock than their children, who are just still, very positive, at least in our setting, very positive and going along and curious and wanting to know, will the army win, right? What does winning even look like to a 7-year-old? It's complicated. I would say lo alecha melacha ligmor. I don't think that there's one individual that can solve it, but what we can control is how we respond to the situation, right? I think that we need to be aware of what's going on in the world. I think that we need to be sensitive to it, but we ought not to let it conquer us and to defeat us, right? I think that there's the psychological terrorism, there's the intellectual terrorism, and I think that is very real. And the way to combat that is to really cling to our Jewish identity and to figure out what that means for us, right? Maybe it does mean, and that the structure of mitzvot are there to illuminate and to enlighten our lives, even when things don't make sense. And because things don't make sense, it's a time to really double down on our Jewish practice and our Jewish identity, and to figure out what are the gifts of our tradition, what are the gifts of our people that have emboldened us to, nevertheless, generation after generation, when we have faced different types of persecution throughout the world, nevertheless, why is it that Judaism is more than a way of life? It's more than monotheism. What is it about our tradition and our history, our practices, that have emboldened us to keep Judaism and our flame and our conviction alive, and to do some really deep thinking about what that means, and to allow that to inform and shape our choices, right? And to not come from a place of fear. We have to deal with the fear. We have to, acknowledge that it's there, but to not let it motivate us, to have the fear compel us. I think that to me is more frightening of a proposal than to come from a place of hope, to come from a place of conviction, to come from a place of understanding that the gifts of Judaism continue in all of these situations, to be able to change and to adapt to what our needs are. And I think that really being a part of educating ourselves, it's why I always feel lucky that I get to be in Jewish education, to be able to be in the classroom and to shape the Jewish future. And to know that by simultaneously building the scaffolding, the structure, the skeleton for knowledgeable and proud Jews is a part of the antidote to the situation, right? It's not about teaching kids how to take their mezuzah down, but saying, no, there are different places we put mezuzot. Do you know that people put mezuzot inside of their houses too? She says to her Reform congregants that, like, yeah, if you're going to take it down from your front door, which I don't think many of our people have, even in Los Angeles, where things seem very wacky. That now's a time for you to put one on your bedroom door if you don't have one, right? To double down on the internal space while we're aware of the external space, to double down on that interior as well, and to use the Jewish traditions to educate ourselves, to use those traditions so that we have the tools, that we have the opportunity to navigate whatever's going to come tomorrow, right? We don't know. God forbid this gets even worse than it gets. I think that that can be a part of, our message to whether we are standing in front of students or teachers or, from the Bima, is that we use the sparks, and we use those sparks to promote the light and the goodness, not with our, not with some naivete and ignoring what's going on, but because that's just what we do. And so now we do it even more. As an educator, what I'm grappling with is how to introduce more nuance to the layers of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and what's going on in Israel, so that we don't compromise developing strong, proud Jews, but we're rather giving them the opportunity for a longer period of time, for more years, while they're developing their pride, to also realize that there's nuance, right? I would say that a good approach for teaching Israel and to teaching Jewish peoplehood, I call it the puppy love, right? That you're just in the courting stage, that you want everyone to love Israel. You want everyone to dream of the Kotel and dream of putting their little notes in the wall. And you want everyone to be excited, enthusiastic about being in Tel Aviv and in the shuks and everything. And that loving Israel also means being exposed to the wrinkles and the difficulties, right? The difficult parts of the conversation, and figuring out a way to address that earlier on, because I think that what we're learning is that who is it that's hiding their Magen David? Who is it that is, if a professor is saying, put your hand up if you're Jewish, and we have students maybe who aren't putting their hand up, like, what is the root of that? Is it shame? Is it lack of information? Is it what can get someone to a point where they feel so threatened in a situation where they want to hide who they are? In the same way that we wouldn't want someone, to closet themselves. How can we empower the modern day Jew to be informed and to consider that they have agency in their own education, and to come from a place of, I am proud, I don't know everything, nevertheless I know that however complicated things are in Israel, however complicated things are in America, that we believe in a person's right to have religious freedom. And that means me too. That means the Jewish person too. That really figuring out how to figure out how to become a proud Jew, an informed Jew, so that when we get into situations of anti-Semitism today, and I'm sorry, but in 10 years from now, and 15 years from now, and in 4 generations from now, that we are no longer surprised, right? That we know that without being a source of fear or shame, that we know that this is a part of the Jewish condition, a part of the human condition, is that when you are the other, to understand your otherness and to understand what it is that is a part of humanity that discriminates against other people, and how to be an upstander within that, so that we do not perpetuate that type of oppression towards any other people. And I think that that's, those are some of the questions that I'm grappling with. I think that also making sure that our teachers have enough information so that they can be authentic to where they've been all along, right? I think that in some of our younger teachers, and this is not just at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, I think that in general, that the younger teachers themselves don't have as much information and history about Israel. They know that they're supposed to support it and that they're supposed to kind of unequivocally, in an unequivocal manner, just kind of be in support of Israel, but they don't know the complexity of why. And so really educating, using this as an opportunity to educate, I mean, it's, I guess I'm an educator, but to really say, okay, like this is our moment, this is our time. And again, not propelling from a place of fear, but just from a place of reality. The reality is that if we don't know our stuff, we're likely to feel ashamed and embarrassed. We're likely to believe that, that Israel is an apartheid state, because if we don't know how to make that argument, if we don't know how to stand up for ourselves, no one's going to stand up for us. I will say that one thing that for me has been very gratifying, and within my portfolio, I oversee not just the Jewish education, but also the spiritual life of the school, our tefillot and our holiday celebrations. And I remember in especially in October and even until today, that up until now we've had parents coming for tefillot and coming in for our Kabbalat Shabbat and really loving it, right? Oh, it's so great. But now we're at a time and a place when people need that spiritual landing pad, right? And I think that leaning into that spirituality and realizing that being able to gather in community and having prayer as a way of healing, as a way of connecting all of us, has been something that I've always been into all along, but it has been particularly gratifying to see that all of our prayers, and I say this often from the Bima, like, let's turn to this page where there's the prayer for the state of Israel. Guess what? It's always been here, right? We've always sung Hatikva. Do we sing it now every time we gather? Yes. But all of these kind of destinations within our spiritual practice have always been a part of us. And now's the time to kind of reveal that light and that glory, and to say, okay, we knew all along that this is a part of living and being in a spiritual, in a particularly Jewish spiritual space.